Oh, good morning, Mr. Metcalf here. On this, what? Uh-oh. Now where'd it go? There we go. All right. You guys don't really want to see an ad for a knee brace. So, good morning. It is the 8th of December, and you guys should be super deep into your study of ancient Greece. But I thought I'd go through this slideshow with you guys, just in case it would help. Um, in your studies. So, ancient Greece. I don't get as deep into the Persians with ancient Greece because we're focusing on the Greeks, but the Persians obviously are super important, as we've discussed in the past, especially with the Assyrians last week or 2 weeks ago. That Middle Eastern history is super rich and super deep, and the Persians only enhance that. And we will get into a little bit more even with the Alexander in the future here. So, ancient Greece. The objectives really explain how geography helped develop Greek culture and political life, understand different types of government and how they influenced life in ancient Greece, describe how individuals had a major influence on Greek culture and political life, and finally, explain the impact that ancient Greece has had on the modern world. Okay, so what do you guys think? What impact has ancient Greece had on the modern world? I think you can really see it in all kinds of places, from architecture to the entertainment that we have to food. So I'll let you guys think about that. And as we go through our presentation, um, be thinking about this question: what impact? Where do we see ancient Greece today? Because there's a reason we study it, and that's because ancient Greece has had a major impact, especially on us in the Western world. All right, the geography. Let's look at this here. If you look at the geography of ancient Greece, it's pretty hilly and mountainous. These small green areas here, a little bit here, a little bit here, right? Over here where Troy was, maybe a little bit. Those areas are the only places really that you can farm. Okay. Um, First of all, you've got the Adriatic and Aegean Sea that surround ancient Greece, well, in Greece today. Mountains covering 3/4 of the land, which meaning only a part of the land is farmable. However, here's the nice thing, and I can attest to this because I've been to Greece a couple different times with the military. It's a pretty moderate climate all year long, between 40 degrees in the winter or cooler months and 80 degrees in the warmer months. So it's a pretty nice place to be. It's got a really nice Mediterranean climate. Okay, how do you think Greece's location by the sea and its mountainous land affect its development? This is a big one, right? Let's look at the first question. How do you think Greece's location by the sea affected its development? And take into consideration when answering this that only 1/4 of that land is farmable. Okay, so think about that. Did they get most of their food from inside their country? Did they have to trade for it? How did that help them develop? Right? The mountainous land. Think about that politically as well, right? Because that's going to have a major impact on them um, as uh, as a political development as well. All right. So trade is one of the answers, and isolation is another. Partial isolation from each other. All right. So let's take a look at the very first Greeks. Okay, pronounced Mycenaeans. Okay, the Mycenaeans, they were Indo-European migrants. Okay, they had contact with the Minoans, who were another group of people that you're learning about this week, a smaller group of people, very big on trade. They adopted um, the they adopted the Minoan culture, which there was a lot of religion, like jumping over bulls and things like that. Art, literature. They built their cities. This is a smart thing. They built their cities on ridges. Okay, that way. So if you take a look at this picture here, right? That way you can look out over everything and you can see who's coming. It's easier to protect, things like that. And they were a group of warrior kings. They were prepared for battle. They weren't like the Spartans, but they were more prepared for battle at all times. Okay, the Trojan War. Let's take a look at that just in brief here. Let me just shrink this down. Okay, so the Greek army besieged and destroyed Troy. Now, the Trojan War. This happens between the Mycenaean Greeks and the Trojans. Okay, if you watch the movie Troy, there's a whole bunch of other kings that take part, Greek kings that take part in this war against Troy. Okay, and what happens is um, Paris and Hector, from the princes of Troy, come to Greece to make a trading deal. Okay, very lucrative trading deal. Troy's doing pretty well. They're rich. Okay, well, Paris is like a playboy kind of, and he sees Helen, who is the queen of, I think it's Sparta. Pretty sure it's Sparta. Yeah, and they fall in love, and he kind of takes her away from Sparta. Probably not a good thing because they are warrior kings there as well. Okay, so because of that, um, uh, the Greeks pursue, like the Greek armies come together under King Agamemnon, and they come to ancient Troy. And after years and years and years of fighting, you'll find in the Iliad that the Trojan horse is created. The Greeks are trying to fake out the Trojans. They create this thing called the Trojan horse. It's supposed to be a gift, but in all actuality, King Odysseus, and his men are hiding inside the Trojan horse. When the Trojans take the horse inside the city, they jump out at night and open the gates, and the whole Greek army floods into ancient Troy and destroys everything. Now, part of this is part of this story is true, part of it is false. There's not, well, or at least overblown. There's not a lot of evidence behind. People aren't 100% sure where ancient Troy is, but we do have there are some more ideas nowadays. So we're gonna watch this short little video here. Oops, there we go. That gives us a little more insight.
This is the Trojan Plain, where myth collides with history. The air is charged with ancient memories of an illicit love affair that let loose the winds of war. This titanic struggle between the Trojans and the Greeks is set into the memory. The story of the Trojan War, handed down by generations of oral poets, was so powerful that 500 years after it is believed to have happened, it was set down in writing, forever immortalized by the Greek poet Homer. His epic, called the Iliad, is believed by some scholars to be based on historical fact. But was it fact, or was it fiction? Until the 19th century, the only place Troy could be found was in literature and in our collective imaginations. Troy seemed destined to forever be located only in the pages of Homer's Iliad. Then, in 1872, a prosperous German merchant set off for Turkey, armed only with a copy of Homer's book and a personal quest to find the legendary city which fell to a great wooden horse 3,000 years before. His name was Heinrich Schliemann. Using clever literary detection and extraordinary confidence in his own gut instinct, Schliemann found what thousands had missed through almost 18 centuries of searching. He located the physical site, what we refer to as Troy. In 1932, a professor at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio, Carl Blagan, reopens the Troy digs. In 1939, he set off for Western Greece, looking for the elusive connection that would link the Mycenaeans to the site at Troy. There he had what has been described as the most remarkable first day in the history of archaeology. While digging in an olive grove, Blagin stumbled upon 600 clay tablets in an indecipherable language, later called Linear B. These were later dated to the 13th century BCE. Could this be the written proof that would place the Mycenaean Greeks on the shores of the Dardanelles and thus bring Homer's Iliad closer to factual history? The tablets proved that the people from Mycenae were indeed Greeks and possessed a form of writing in the late Bronze Age at a time that corresponds to the Trojan War. To this day, there is still no direct link of the physical Troy with Homer's story. And so Homer brings the reader full circle, from reality to myth and back again. All roads may lead to Rome, but even the Romans would agree that they start here at Troy. Here, where evidence of the myth may be only the turn of a stone away.
All right. So, possibility of the finding of ancient Troy. Who knows? Who knows exactly what? If it's 100% true, they're continuing to work on finding more material. Part of the problem is that World War II happened, and some of the worst fighting happened in the Dardanelles, and so you have to account for the destruction that took place in that area. Okay, like in 1939, he's just on the cusp of finding some stuff. We go to war. War in Europe started before that, before we entered, but 1941 we enter the war, and so all that has to stop for quite a few years. So, all right, there is a group of people called the Dorians. Okay, and this is after Troy. This is after Troy happens. This is like the 1200s. Mycenaean civilization collapses. They're attacked by these sea people who've attacked the Hittites and the Egyptians and other people over time. And the Dorians take over. Okay, and basically the Dorians are a less advanced group of people, and things kind of go backwards. Okay, economy collapses, trade comes to a standstill. Greeks appear to have temporarily lost the art of writing, as there's really no written records between 1150 to 750 BC. Okay, in between that time, they relied on oral history, and we know the difficulties with oral history. Things change over time. Okay. All right, Homer, not this guy, not the artist, this guy, this stone guy. Okay. He was a blind man and a storyteller. This is who we have our history on the Trojan War on. Okay. He created his epics between 750 and 700 BC, the Iliad and Odyssey. However, let's think about this for a second. He wasn't a historian. Okay. He was a poet. His focus was on poetry, telling a story, getting people involved, right? And the problem with that is, especially orally, is that it tends to change a little bit over time. So you can't be 100% sure of what that history is. Which gets us, though, into Greek mythology, or creating myths, okay? During this time period, when the Greeks are re-emerging from their dormancy, I suppose you could say, they start to create these rich myths, okay? And the pantheon of gods is really going to explode, okay? A Greek writer named Hesiod writes a book called Theogony, or Genealogy of the Gods. It helps Greeks understand nature and the power of human passions. Like, for instance, it explains the changing of the seasons. Gods and goddesses of the Greeks have human qualities: love, hate, jealousy. They quarrel with each other, they compete with each other. Zeus is the ruler. He lives on Mount Olympus with his wife, Hera. She's super jealous. And you can actually see that portrayed today, her jealousy, and in cartoons that, or not cartoons, excuse me, animes that you'll find on like Netflix, for instance. Athena, some of the other major gods and goddesses. Athena, who was goddess of wisdom, Zeus's daughter, and she was the guardian of the cities. Okay, so if I was doing this in person, I'd have you guys summarize what you just learned, but obviously we can't do that. And I'd also have you write an epic. What was my link up here? I don't remember what I made the link for. Oh, an example of an epic. That's what I was doing here. Geoffrey Chaucer. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." That was Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven, one of my favorites. But that's an example, right? Now, something you'll notice in there that you don't get in history. There's all kinds of, let me just open it back up real quick. There's all kinds of adjectives and things like that, right? Look, if you were a historian telling this story, you would say, it happened on this date, in the around midnight. I was sleeping. Someone started knocking on my door. It might have been a visitor. Nothing more. But with this, right, you've got once upon a midnight dreary. Well, I pondered weak and weary, right? It adds in all these extra things. Okay, so kind of sensationalizes what's happening. All right, Greek city-states. We will take this up in the next video. We'll end this part of the video, and then we'll get into the Greek city-states in the next video.